propaganda. Okay, you have the influx of, the threat of, Islam terrorists, all kind of, things are happening, all right, which will eventually affect this ministry, which is why we have to keep our heads on the swivel, stay sober.
Shalom, 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 shalom. As always, let's give all the praises and the glory to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and to His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Double honors to the apostles, to the elders of Great Millstone, shalom to you, and shalom to the hopefully elect brothers and sisters of the house of Israel. The Bible says, many are called, few are chosen. The chosen are the elect of the true nation of Israel. All right, the elect. Now, I actually saw this last night when I went to bed. I was watching some of this in my bed last night, right? The Black Winter is Jacob's trouble. So I was watching a bit of it last night, and probably about 15 minutes of it. And in that 15 minutes, it was a particular part that stood out, all right? Now, as you can see from the title, IUIC, Bishop Nathanyel's Habakkuk 2 and 6, Thick Clay Breakdown. The importance of knowing the Hebrew, right? That's the key. The importance of knowing the Hebrew. Now, when I went to bed last night, I said, I'm going to let this, I said, oh, should I let this slide? And then I woke up this morning I saw videos in my subscription, one from the Elder Apostle Orion Lab, which was called, he had a video called, And to Him That Lathers Himself with Thick Clay. And then the other video I saw pop up in my subscription, in my notification, was Elder Apostle Tahar's video, where he says, is this thing mentioned in the scriptures? And both videos were talking about Habakkuk 2 and 6. So when I saw that, I said, there's no way I can let this slide, all right? Because I was thinking, should I let it slide or should I do it later? But no, I can't let it slide. When I saw that, I thought that's the Spirit of the Lord showing me you have to do this video now, get it out there, let the people understand that the bishop, once again, is completely going off on breaking down the scriptures, all right? Completely going off. So without further ado, let me get my mug off of the screen, sorry, and let's get this up on full screen here. Listen to what Bishop Nathanyel says here when he's breaking down Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 6. Now, we're going to particularly hone on a couple of words in this verse. Thick clay. Thick, T-H-I-C-K, clay, C-L-A-Y. All right? So listen up, listen up, listen up.
Go ahead.
How long? And to him that ladeth him.
When it says how long, meaning how long will this keep going on? Go ahead.
And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
The thick clay are the nation, like when you read in Daniel 2:40, 44, about all the nations coming here. That's what it's talking about. Go ahead.
Did you hear that? He said the thick clay in Habakkuk 2 and 6 is about all of the nations coming to America. Listen carefully. I've got to play it again. I'm sorry. He said the thick clay is about all of the nations coming to America. Listen to what he says, right? He's breaking down the book of Habakkuk, the prophet Habakkuk, right? It was, I think it was during the Babylonian captivity he was around, right? 2 and 6, right?
Go ahead.
How long? And to him that ladeth him.
When it says how long, meaning how long will this keep going on? Go ahead.
And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
The thick clay are the nation, like when you read in Daniel 2:40, 44, about all the nations coming here. That's what it's talking about. Go ahead. 44, about all clay. Go ahead.
And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
The thick clay are the nation, like when you read in Daniel 2:40, 44, about all the nations coming here. That's what it's talking about. Go ahead.
So, perfectly clear, he said, right? The thick clay is about the nations that are coming here in Daniel 2 and, I think it said 2 and 40 and 2 and 44, all right? Coming to America, right? This is what he said, all right? I think he said Daniel's 2. He said Daniel's 2 and 40. Let me just see if he said Daniel's 2 and 40. All right, this is what he said, but listen, just I said, listen carefully to what he says.
I mean, how long will this keep going on? Go ahead.
And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
The thick clay are the nation, like when you read in Daniel 2:40, 44, about all the nations coming here, that's what it's talking about. Go ahead.
But all the nations coming to America in Daniel's 2 and 40 and Daniel's 2 and 44. He's completely talking out of his rear end, right? For a lack of a better word. And he's completely winging it, right? It's completely going off. Now, this is the importance of knowing the Hebrew, all right? The Hebrew, all right? This is why when the apostles speak about having to learn the scriptures in the Hebrew, especially the words and a lot of the key words in the Hebrew, because if you don't go back to the original language, you're going to keep going off like Bishop Nathanyel, all right? Completely gone off. But like I said, there's no one in the IUIC organization that will raise their hand and say, but hold on a minute, that doesn't mean that in the Hebrew. It means something completely different. The reason why they don't know what that word means in the Hebrew is because they refuse to teach their congregation, right, to break down the scriptures and to learn these words in the original Hebrew, right, in the Hebrew language, so you get the meaning of these words. So let me just show you now a video, and this is what I said I got to do this video because so this morning I woke up to Apostle Orion Lab's video, right? It was in my notification. And it just happened to be, that's the spirit of the Most High. That's the spirit of Yahweh Shai. I truly believe this. That's the spirit working through the men of Great Millstone, right? He happened to have a video up called, "And to him that lathers himself with thick clay." Now listen and get the true proper understanding of the word thick clay in the original Hebrew, right? That's why you have to learn the Bible in the Hebrew. Listen to the Apostle Orion Lab, all right?
It says, "And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay." Now let's look up the word first, ladeth, right? And then we look up the word thick clay, because the thick clay there is not what you think it is. Most people think thick clay is just clay that you mold stuff with, make pottery and all that, but that's not the case. And this is why this is one of the main reasons or importance of looking into the original language that the scriptures are written in, because they'll give you a better understanding as to what is being said in that precept. Just like in the book of Job, it speaks about that all the hands of the wicked shall be against them, and you're thinking that's Edomite against Edomite, civil war and all that, and it's not. It's speaking about the laborers. But you wouldn't know that unless you went into the Hebrew to be able to gather that information or to glean that information out of the original writings.
You hear what he said, right? He said, this is why you have to go into the Hebrew. We've always known it. Our teachers have always taught us this, that to understand the scriptures, we have to go into the Hebrew to understand the original language of these words and what they mean. If you don't, you're going to misquote, you're going to misbreak down, you're going to sell your congregation a lie because you refuse to go into the Hebrew. And the reason why Bishop Nathanyel breaks down a lot of the scriptures wrong is because he refuses to go into the Hebrew, the original language. Now, I'm going to let the Apostle Orion Lab break it down. I don't need to break it down. I know what it means, but I'm going to let the Apostle Orion Lab break it down beautifully for you, right? So listen to what the Apostle Orion Lab says here.
So the word there is kabad, right? For ladeth, it says to be heavy, be weighty, be grievous. And this ties into the economy because thick clay goes into just that. And these devils understand the concept of debt. It says here, thick clay. And the Hebrew word there is ibat yat, which goes back to the word ibat, to lend, to fetch, borrow, surety, break. You know, and when you go down here, it says weight of pledges, heavy debts. So through America, Babylon the Great, and their monetary system.
Because that's what it means. It means weight of pledges, heavy debts. The word upteat or well, some people pronounce it upteat or ibatia, right? Means heavy debts. It doesn't mean people coming to America from all these different nations that make up the different nations of America. That's he completely winged it. He completely was going off. And the reason why he's misrepresenting what the scripture says, Bishop Nathanyel, is because he refuses to go into the Hebrew like what the apostles have always taught the men underneath them and themselves. They were taught that themselves when they came into the truth, the importance of the Hebrew. So I'm going to let the Apostle Ramla continue, right, for a few minutes here.
Which is the world reserve currency of the dollar, the world, since 1945, and even before that, but really 1945, 46, that's when, you know, the world started to really gather and take in these dollar bills and become more and more in debt. And this is why they're pissed off, because they didn't realize that the debt meant that eventually their lands, their resources, and them as a people would have to be taken, you know, as servants, pretty much, slaves, in order to be able to pay off these debts. And the international banking families that established the Federal Reserve System didn't really necessarily care about collecting those debts, because they knew that eventually, even if the people didn't pay it, they would have to, you know, they would eventually collect that debt anyway, because of the system that would be put in place and the means, you know, that you would have to use to be able to, you know, interact with that particular system. See, so they already knew that they were going to get that money back. They already knew that these people were going to be into debt. This is why the WEF, World Economic Forum, who at one time was headed by Klaus Schwab, he stepped down. He said, you will own nothing and be happy. Why? Because you're going to be nothing but a slave, and you're just going to be given the basic necessities to live, to survive. You know, and this is why these devils here, especially here in America, have made it a point to have the people in America to be so lazy and to get so many benefits from the government, so that they can pretty much have you in a quagmire, you know, in a corner, to where if you want to still get these benefits, you don't want to work, you want to be a lazy fat fuck, then you have to, you know, take this device, the MOTB, which is the micro C here, and then you'll be able to, you know, to be able to maneuver once again in this new system, because there is going to be a reset, and that reset is going to be digital. And we've been saying this for the longest, you know, and we've been laughed at, mocked at, you know, beginning with Elder Pastor and down, you know, called conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy theories is normally a nut or some crazy shit like that. You know, now it went from that to these individuals that mocked us, you know, speaking about the digital system and the CBDCs and the currencies that are going up, the digital currencies that are going up. And if they offer you a microchip, don't take it, and blah, 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 this, that, the other. And they might throw a microchip in there, because these devils now have to double talk. You know, they have to try to clean up their mess. But the receipts are out there. And anyone that believes you, that goes back and sees all of that evidence put together and still can't see that you ain't right, then that means that they ain't right. Anyways, so weight of pledges, heavy debt. So
see, weight of pledges, heavy debt, right? I didn't really want to cut him off there, right? Now, this is a scripture that Nathanyel is reading out. Habakkuk 2:6, all right? When it says, shall not all these take up a parable against him? Who is the him? America, Babylon the Great. And a taunting proverb against him. Him is America, Babylon the Great. And say, woe unto him, woe unto America, right? Babylon the Great, that increases that which is not his. As you see, going into Venezuela is part of that, increasing that which is not his. It's another example of that. How long we have to put up with what America's doing until the day of judgment, basically, right? And to him that ladders himself with thick clay, as the apostle Orion Lab showed you, it means heavy debt. Now, understand this. This is the US debt. This is what America has done. It's laden itself with thick clay, heavy debt. The US government, this is just the government, is $38.5 trillion in debt. That's just the government, all right? It's a country that's laden itself with thick clay. America's government's debt is, I think, 10 times it's more than its GDP. All right. So it's 124% to its GDP. So it's 24% over what its GDP is, America's debt, because that's what it's done. And most of these countries have done the same thing. But America's debt is the critical one, because America, the US dollar is the world reserve currency. And once that collapses, everything else is going to collapse like a dominoes effect. All right. That's $38 trillion in debt. That's the American government alone. All right. Then you've got, what you got here? It's up millions. What's that? 51 billion. So that is 3, 6, 9, 12. 3, 6, 9, 12. The US total debt, right? The country, $106 trillion. 106 trillion. That's everything. All right. Some people say it's even more than that. 106 trillion. That's the debt. So that's what's happened to America. Woe unto them that ladders themselves with thick clay, with heavy debt. That's what America has done. So, and then the other video I wanted to show you was this one here. This is why I said this video had to be done, because then I was watching Apostle Tahar's video, and then, oh, Holy Benoit, listen to what's being said here.
He simply doesn't know. Let's let you listen to a little bit more, and then I'm going to close it.
All right, to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. All right, which this country is in a heavy debt, and there's no way.
Thank you for saying that. Thick clay. If you don't go into the Hebrew, you will not understand what is mean by thick clay.
You hear the apostle? If you do not go into the Hebrew, you will not understand what it says by thick clay. So because Nathanyel's refusal to go into the Hebrew, he does not understand what it says by thick clay. All right? Because his refusal to go into the Hebrew, this guy here, and to teach the congregation that, they will never truly understand the scriptures, which shows that the Spirit of the Lord is not working with the IUIC. But no one challenged him about that, because they don't want anything their master says, they obey. They don't think, they got to use their head for more than a hat rack, as the Apostle Tahar always says. That's his famous saying. Use your head, man, for more than a hat rack. Seriously.
Go ahead.
How long? And to him that ladeth
When it
himself,
says how long, meaning how long will this keep going on? Go ahead.
and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
The thick clay are the nation, like when you read in Daniel 2:40, 44, about all the nations coming here. That's what it's talking about. Go ahead.
Completely going off. Completely going off. But hey, that's because that's their refusal to go into the Hebrew. Right? That's their refusal.
Which this country is in a heavy debt, and there's
Thank
no
you
way.
for saying that. Thick clay. If you don't go into the Hebrew, you will not understand what is mean by thick clay. Thick clay, the word there is abatyat in the Hebrew, which means pledge or debt. They're in heavy debt.
And what is the US in? What is Babylon the Great in? Babylon the Great is in heavy debt. The government, $38.5 trillion. The whole country, $106 trillion in debt. Heavy debt. Woe unto you that ladders yourself with thick clay. And that's why that's why the Spirit is not working with the IUIC, because they refuse to go into the Hebrew, just like how they refuse to call on the Lord's name in the Hebrew. Not working with them at all.
Way of getting rid of that debt. All right, and the debt came by way of setting up the Federal Reserve, that eventually, will produce the money of America. All right, it was originally backing money by gold and silver, but no longer does it back money by gold and silver. It doesn't back it by anything. So you have what is known as the petrol. Yes, so that they could grow their economy. But now nations are backing away from using that, which is they're selling off their dollar reserves. All right, they're dumping the dollar, they're ditching it. All right, they're pushing for de-dollarization, which is ultimately leading to the weakening of the dollar, which was already weak because it's not backed by anything. So anytime you spend it, it generates debt. And I haven't looked at the debt clock in a long time, but that debt is insurmountable.
He said he hadn't looked at the debt clock for a long time. Well, my brother, I was just showing it to them. That's the Spirit. This is the debt clock he's referring to. It's insurmountable. Woe unto him that ladders himself with thick clay, heavy debt. It's insurmountable. $106 trillion. Unfunded debt and interest. US national debt, 38.5 trillion. Put those together. It's insurmountable. The whole system's going to collapse. He's 100% right. It's a disgrace that Bishop Nathanyel did that, and that's why he spent 2 seconds on it and just went straight to the next verse.
It's too much. So these nations are seeing how, America just prints money out of thin air, to back its military. All right, they're seeing how America is aggressive when it comes down to tariffs and sanctions, and they're backing away from this country, and they're finding other means of, operating and doing their dealings, outside of, the system of America. So yeah, the heavy debt. That's what thick clay is. Ibatyat, the heavy debt.
That's what.
Shall they not rise up suddenly?
That's what thick clay is. Ibatyat, heavy debt. That's what it is. Not what this disingenuous guy says it is. Once more before I shut this down.
With thick clay.
The thick clay. On. Go ahead.
And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay.
The thick clay are the nation, like when you read in Daniel 2:40, 44, about all the nations coming here. That's what it's talking about. Go ahead.
Completely going off. I'm not even going to go into Daniel's 2 and 44 because that's not talking about nations coming to America, right? He's talking about iron mixed with miry clay. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. That's talking about Europe. That's talking about the European nation. That's talking about the beast. He wants you to believe it's this. It's talking about this. It's the same thing as what Habakkuk 2 and 6. This is talking about the European Union. The 10 toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay. So the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. This is talking about the EU. This ain't talking about nothing to do with Habakkuk 2 and 6 in terms of heavy debt. This is not the same type of clay. All right. I'm just curious. Let me just quick look at this word, what this word clay says here. Irons, partly irons, partly clay. All right. Yeah, it's a complete different word. Clay, potsherd. See? Complete different word. Complete and utterly different word.
Strong's H2635. Chasaf. Chasaf.
A complete different word to thick clay, what you're looking at there. It's mad. It's absolutely mad. But hey, they've all fell for it. They've all felt for it. What's that? Sa. And the last one, kasap, because that's pa. So that will be pa. Complete different Hebrew word, right? The word clay in Daniel's 2 and 43 that he wants you to believe is the same word as in Habakkuk 2 and 6. Just to show you, all right? This is what he wants you to believe. If we go to Habakkuk 2 and 6, thick clay, they're going to show it's a complete different word. Complete different word. Thick clay. Let's just bring that one up. See? My Hebrew's not great, but I do know some and the important words, but I'll always look it up anyway to confirm what I'm saying myself. This is I. So I'm saying I, but, ta. Yeah, Ibatia, because that's Yah, the smallest letter in the Hebrew. Yah, but, yeah, ba, that's ba, ba, tiat, ta, that's ta, ya, ta, Ibatia, all right? My pronunciation ain't totally great, but I know what I'm doing when I'm going into the Hebrew and breaking down these words. So see this word? Ibatia. All right? That's thick clay. And when we go to Daniel's, just to show you, see, complete different Hebrew word. As you can see, complete. All right? This is car. Begins with C-H-A. Car. Not I. Car. Kasa. Kasap. Because that's pa. That last character there is pa. So ka, sup, kasap, kasap. So kasap, it would be kasap, kasap, kasap. That sounds like a mockingbird, don't I? Know.
Strong's H2635. Chasaf. Chasaf.
They say kasap, it's kasap. That's kasap. That's the Hebrew word there, kasap. Right? In that word, in that one there. And here it is.
Strong's H5671. Avtit. Avtit.
They pronounce it avtit. It's abat. Ibat. Ibatit. 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 If I'm trying my best to pronounce it correctly, in the kingdom it'll be perfected. But it's two different Hebrew words spelled two differently. This one begins with I, as you can see, bar, I bar, ta. This is ya, ibatia, all right? Complete different word to what you're seeing here, all right? This is Habakkuk's. We're reading from Habakkuk 2 and 6. So in Daniel's, complete different word, talking about something completely different. Of clay, complete different Hebrew word, just so you could see. All right, and when it says that, it says, whereas thou sawest feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of an iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, right? This is talking about the EU, all right? The European nations, partly strong, partly weak. Some of these nations are strong, some are weak. Some have massive GDPs, some have very little GDPs, right? Some are in wholly in debt, some are not as in debt as the others, right? Some have a bigger military, some have a smaller military, right? Partly strong, and they're not getting on. As you saw, this is why Britain left the EU. They had enough, and Britain was part of that, made up part of the strength of the EU. All right, and then it says, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom, the EU, shall be partly strong and partly broken. All right, and that's why we left it, because the EU is broken, divided, and it became clear when Britain left, the United Kingdom left the EU. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, strong nations, weak nations, strong economies, weak economies, all make up the European Union. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, right? All from different nations. Plus they've got the influx of people coming in from those Arab nations, but they shall not cleave one to another. That's why there's so much unrest in the European Union, because they've had a flood of people come from these Arab countries into the European Union. Millions we're talking came into the European Union, right? From Syria, from Iraq, right? Some were coming in from, what's the other place? Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. And there's another place they was coming in from a lot, but they had millions of Arabs coming in. At one point, Germany took in, I think 1.5 million Arabs came into Germany under Merkel, all right? If I remember, about 1.5 million, right, came into Germany, right, from, I think when Merkel was in power, they came in. Look here, this is what this is talking about. See, Germany is home to over 1.5 million people from Arabic-speaking countries, a significant community formed by waves of migration, particularly during the 2015 refugee crisis from Syria. So I was right, it was Syria, alongside earlier guest workers from North Africa. The largest group come from Syria, Iraq, Morocco, and Lebanon. They're all Arabs, with major concentration in the cities like Berlin, Frankfurt, Hamburg, and they've got an epidemic of crime from these people that have come in now, making up a large part of Germany's growing Arab and Muslim population, right? And the majority of them came in June 2015, right? Look, Migration drivers, Syria civil war 2015, a major influx of refugees with Germany expecting up to 1.5 million asylum seekers in 2015, leading to a large Syrian community. I never forget this. And this is why we left the European community, right? Because it was just, after they've left Germany, they were like trying to make their way to the United Kingdom. It was just too much. So it says here, demographics. The Arab community contributes significantly to Germany's diverse Muslim population, estimated at 5.5 million. So 6.5% of the population are Arabs and Muslim that are in Germany. That's massive. So this is why you see the European Union falling apart. That was one of the main reasons, migrations. So when it says it, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, all right, the different nations coming into Germany, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Yes, they are men, but they shall not cleave one to another, because these were Muslims that were coming in their millions. That's why the European Union is broken. That's why Britain left the European Union, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. So one has got nothing to do with the other. This miry clay, this clay word here, is not the same word as the clay word here, right, in Habakkuk 2 and 6, right? These are talking about two different things. One is talking about America, Babylon the Great. The other one's talking about the European Union. He's winging it. That's what he's doing, winging it. Trust me. So I'm going to leave it there. Just kind of wanted to touch on that, man, because I was thinking, should I do another video on this guy? And when I saw the videos of the apostles, I thought, you know what? That's the Spirit telling me, man, you need to get to work. So here it is. Once again, Bishop Nathanyel, Habakkuk 2 and 6, thick clay breakdown, completely going off. Why? Because they don't stress the importance of knowing the Hebrew. Very important, brothers and sisters, to understand the scriptures through the Spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So on that note, all praises and glory to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and to his only begotten Son, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and to the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to you and to the hopefully elect. Shalom, shalom, shalom.